So, when you are producing for something as historic and well known as Snoopy, how do you balance what has come before with adding your own flair?
Writing songs for something as iconic as the Peanuts world uh, is kind of easy in a way because we know it. So it's a world that we know. Now they wanted to take it as they should have a little more into the future, like it has to develop some. And so, like Charlie Brown, we know him to not be a terribly excited fella, and but he's deep. He's a thoughtful person. You could almost say that at times you would worry that he was depressed, even. And we know kids like that, and that's what's so great about that world. So it gives you layers, and writing inside those layers is far easier than if it was just like a one dimensional thing.
Yeah, they are two-dimensional. No, bad
All right.
animation joke.
I mean, I think the key to writing new songs for Snoopy was looking for inspiration in the original Vince, Guaraldi music too, and how it was all piano based, and that sort of classic jazz piano, which is why we decided to start the very first song in the special, which is Best Time Ever, off with that, piano figure that kind of propels you through the whole song. So it was sort of like, looking to the past for inspiration and trying to honor that and then bring it into the present with, a more contemporary style of music. And also like melding that original style with also Ben Folds style, since we knew he was writing songs as well and wanting it to sound like of one piece.
We were just huge fans of the old Peanut specials. I mean, I don't know how many times I watched Charlie Brown Christmas special as a kid and as an adult, and that piano trio sound that was just so authentically just sort of grounded in the Peanuts universe. It just felt like that was such a great touchstone to pull from, and then figure out, in the past how to make those characters actually sing, how to like bring that to life, because obviously you're mostly hearing the instrumental music that was so iconic for the series, but then we wanted to make sure that we were actually going to be speaking authentically in the voice of these Peanuts characters that had been established obviously for so many years.
Were you a camp kid?
Not really. I went to camp 5 days, because it's, like even though the first song that I wrote for this was, it actually comes in the middle, was a sad waltz as they realized that the camp's going to get mowed down. Um, Even though it's a serious song, it's still set in a world where sand is in everything. You just can't get the lake sand and dirt out of stuff. And I just remember pulling the sheets off the bunk, and it was the last day of camp, and they're like, put them in this drawer or bag or something. And I'm thinking, it's gonna be there for a whole year. It's disgusting. Which is pretty much what it was when we arrived. It was gross. So remembering that helps make it real. And then otherwise, Charlie Brown's character could be almost of any age. So I sort of assumed that he could sort of inhabit a middle-aged man's psyche. And that's where I wrote it from.
There's always an earnestness, especially to like the Peanuts characters, right? But how do you keep that emotional core there without it kind of dipping into almost like saccharine territory? Because you do have these really upbeat songs, but like you want there to be that emotional core. Like how do you approach that?
I mean, I think the way to keep it from becoming saccharine is actually again honoring the the past of Charlie Brown and what the tone of Charlie Brown is, because they've always done such a brilliant job at, pulling at your heartstrings, making something emotional, and then turning it with a slight comment that you're like, wait, did that kid just say that? They would always have this sort of adult wink and a nod, that the adults could appreciate. And I think we tried to do that in the song. So anytime a song would get super emotional, there was always a little, turn or a phrase in the lyric, especially in the opening, that never allowed it to get too on the nose or too saccharine. When Sally's singing about, you know, her fear of camp, it's always couched in like the funny things of that we all kind of relate to about living in the wilderness or being outside. So we were able to take what is a really scary and could be a very like emotional moment for her and kind of just keep twisting it in a funny way.
I also love how the Peanuts characters are so naturally introspective, and so many of even the old comic strips, you really have like Charlie Brown and Linus. They're kind of sitting there, like on a wall, like next to the wall, and having like deeper discussions about each other, just sort of trying to understand the nature of the world. I mean, Lucy even sets up like a little, therapy session for like 5 cents for people. So there's always something that is sophisticated, and their interest in understanding the world, it makes them so adult, and yet their sensibility is still so innocent and childlike and optimistic. So it makes it so much fun to write for.
Charlie Brown historically didn't like camp. So if you keep up with the Peanuts world, that's not something he ever liked. So what you read into this is that he grew up a little bit and he realized how amazing it was, and now he's trying to make sure his little sister loves it too.
It's also fun in like a song like Best Time Ever, the opening song, where when the kids are all excited on their way to camp, not Sally, the other kids are all excited on the bus on their way. And it's sort of like could be a little saccharine of like, oh, we're all gonna have the best time ever. This is so great. But like kind of what we chose to do in the lyric of the second verse is they're all like, pulling pranks on one another. Honk the horn with the car next door. You're gonna drive through the tree. Oh my God, I'm gonna freak out. So it's always like pulling these funny little things in addition to just being like, oh my God, this is the greatest day of our lives.